Narayane Bhagavati Taridam Vishvam Ahitam Grihita Mayoru Gunaha Sargadhav Aguna Swataha Narayane Bhagavati Taridam Vishwamahitam Grihita Mayoru Sargadhavaguna Swataha Narayane Bhagavati Tadidam Vishwamahitam Grihita Mayorugunaha Sargadhav Aguna Swataha. Narayane Bhagavati Tadidam Vishwamahitam Grihita Mayoruguna Sargadava Gunaswataha Narayane unto Narayan Bhagavati, the personality of Godhead. Tat idam, all these material manifestations. Vishvam, all the universes. Ahitam, situated. Grihita, having accepted. Maya, material energies. Urugunaha, greatly powerful. Sarga adau, in creation, maintenance, and destruction. Agunaha, without affinity for the material modes. Swataha, self-sufficiently. All the material manifestations of the universes are therefore situated in his powerful material energies, which he accepts self-sufficiently, although he is eternally without affinity for the material modes. Purport. The question put by Narad before Brahma concerning the sustenance of the material creation is thus answered. Material actions and reactions, as the material scientist can superficially observe, are not basically ultimate truth in regard to creation, maintenance, and destruction. The material energy is a potency of the Lord, which is displayed in time, accepting the three qualities of goodness, passion, and ignorance in the forms of Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva. The material energy thus works under the supreme spell of his lordship, although he is always transcendental to all such material activities. A rich man constructs a big house by spending his energy in the shape of resources. And similarly, he destroys a big house by his resources, but the maintenance is always under his personal care. The Lord is the richest of the rich because he is always fully complete in 6 opulences. Therefore, he is not required to do anything personally, but everything in the material world is carried out by his wishes and direction. Therefore, the entire material manifestation is situated in Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The impersonal conception of the Supreme Truth is due to lack of knowledge only, and this fact is clearly explained by Brahmaji, who is supposed to be the creator of the universal affairs. Brahmaji is the highest authority in Vedic wisdom, and his assertion in this connection is therefore the supreme information. Om Gyanatimirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Koda Mahyam Tadhati Shapadantikam Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamanang Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Shahagana Raghunathan Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lulita Sri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hori Priye Panchakol Patarubhyascha Kripa Sindhobhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Narayane Bhagavati Taridam Vishwamahitam Grihita Mayo Ruguna Sargadavaguna Swataha. Lord Brahma is speaking about the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are 2 creations. The first creation is the creation by the Lord, creation of the material elements, the basic constituents of the material cosmic manifestation. That's called Sarga. And the second creation, called Visarga, is Lord Brahma's creation, in which he elaborates the form and structure and goings-on of the universe. The basic ingredients are provided by the personality of Godhead, and then Lord Brahma is the contractor for construction of the universe. So Narayan, Bhagavati, Narayan means Krishna, the personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, who's complete in six opulences. And Tadidam Vishwamahitam. Tadidam Vishwam means the whole universe. This whole universe. Tadidam Vishwam. Ahitam. It's situated Narayane. Narayane is locative case. It means in something. The universe is situated in what? It's situated in Narayan. Narayane Bhagavati. Tadidam Vishwam. The whole universe is situated in Narayan. Grihita Maya Uruguna. He accepts Maya. Grihita means takes hold of. Accepts or Grihita. Grihita means grabbing onto something, taking hold of something. So the Lord takes hold of Maya. Maya Jakshena, Prakriti, Suyate, etc. Maya works under the supervision of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Grihita Maya, he has nothing to do with Maya, but still he indirectly takes hold or takes charge of Maya. It's chanu rupam api yasya chacheshtatesa. Maya is like the shadow which acts according to the actions of the object. If I raise my hand, my shadow raises its hand. So Maya acts according to the desire of Krishna. It's chanu rupam api yasya chacheshtatesa. She puts forth her efforts for in obedience to the wishes of Krishna. It's Chanurupa. So he doesn't directly have to arrange. Now you do this, now you do this, now you do this. Parasya Shakti, Swabhavaki, Jnana Bala Kriyacha. His energies are Swabhavaki, which means automatically they do what he wants. Good servant. A good, first-class servant you don't have to give orders to. He already anticipates this. It's all done. So his energies are working under his control, automatically, to carry out his desires for the cosmic manifestation. Uruguna means that Krishna has great qualities. He's greatly powerful. Guna means qualities, and Uru means great, powerful. Uruguna. But Aguna. He's Uruguna and he's Aguna. Aguna means he has no material qualities. And Uruguna means he has very great qualities. So he has qualities, but not material qualities. Uruguna and Aguna. The absolute truth can't be a thing of this material world. He's not under passion or ignorance or goodness. He's not made of material elements. So therefore he's Aguna. He's beyond the modes of nature, beyond the qualities of nature, beyond the characteristics of this material world. Aguna. And yet, Uruguna, he has the greatest qualities, because he has spiritual qualities. Achintya guna swarupam. He's the very form of inconceivable qualities. Achintya guna. You can't even think about how great the full extent of his qualities. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur gives the example. Krishna is greater than the great. Well, we can get some We can conceive of greater than the great, greater than the Empire State Building, greater than the earth, greater than the universe, greater than all the universes put together. We have some idea, we go on and on. We can't really reach the limit, but we know what direction we're going in. Greater, 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 greater. And Krishna is also smaller than the smallest. We can think about that. Smaller than the germ, smaller than the atom, smaller than the angstrom unit, smaller than smaller than smaller than smaller. And we can kind of imagine smaller and smaller and smaller. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that the greatness of Krishna is not that he's greater than the greatest or smaller than the smallest, but that he's both at the same time. And he says, and still he maintains his charming medium-sized form. So that blows our circuits. We can think of greater than the greatest, we can think of smaller than the smallest, but both at the same time and medium-sized. That doesn't come within our thinking power. Therefore Krishna is called Achintya Guna Swarupam. His form, that's also said. Yes, Yantaks Tani. Everything is within him. What is that? Mayata tamidam sarvam. Jagadavyaktamurti. Matstani sarvabhutani nachaham teshu vasta. Everything's within me, and yet everything's not within me. Nacha matstani bhutani. Pashyame yogamaishvara. Everything's within the body of Krishna, and everything, yet Krishna's beyond everything. So this is Krishna, Achintya Guna Swarupam. He's Aguna and he's Uruguna. He has all fame, all strength, knowledge, wealth, renunciation, beauty. But they're not material qualities. They're eternal, transcendental qualities. So, Sargadhav, even in creation, material destruction. Sarga means creation. And Ada means beginning with. So, beginning with creation means creation. Actually, Ada means beginning with, or we would say, etc. Beginning with 1, 2, 3, 4. So that means 5, 6, 8, 12. Beginning with New York, Atlanta, Washington, Philadelphia, down to the little tiny villages. So Sargadhav means beginning with. So beginning with creation, what's after creation? Maintenance. And after maintenance, destruction. So even when he's involved in creation and maintenance and destruction, he's transcendental. It's not that because he's in some way overseeing these material qualities, he becomes materially affected. Namam karmani limpanti name karma palespraha. He's no material, and the material energy can't touch him. So Sargadhav, and Prabhupada points out that the creation, Sarga, is done by Lord Brahma. And the destruction is done by Lord Shiva. And the maintenance the Lord does himself. Just like this church. So for creation, some contractor is called in our case, renovation. But if it were creation, same thing. And if we want to tear down part of it or all of it, you say, oh, it's not big enough, we're going to make it 10 stories, whatever it is. If there's destruction, you call a contractor. But the maintenance will do. personally will oversee the maintenance. The contractors are called in for creation and destruction, but the maintenance, that's our business. So the Lord employs Shiva, Brahma for destruction and creation. Maintenance he takes charge of personally as Vishnu. And Svataha, he does everything self-sufficiently. Svata means on his own, independently. Swa means oneself. Swa means oneself. So Svataha, everything he does, he doesn't need anyone else for. Even though he's employing Brahma, Vishnu, Brahma, Shiva, Vishnu, they're all expansions of his energy. Vasudeva Sarvamiti, Krishna is everything. So he can do everything by himself. We need help. If we want to create, then we call a contractor from outside. We want to destroy from outside, we call a contractor. But Krishna, he can just manifest a contractor from within his own energy. Brahma's the energy of Krishna. Lord Shiva is the energy of Krishna. So he doesn't have to look elsewhere. He doesn't have to look elsewhere. It's all within his energy. Just like a cook, we're not calling for outside cooks. We have our own cook. If we want a painter, maybe we'll call an outside painter. And that's a job we're not set up for. And cooking will do because we have our own inside staff. We have our own cook. We don't have to go elsewhere. So Krishna, he has everything within himself. Lord Arjuna saw in the 11th chapter, everything's in you. All the demigods, the sun, the moon, the air, fire, they're all found, they're all manifest in your universal form. Therefore Krishna's Swarat, Swata, the meaning is the same. He's self-sufficient. He's categorically different from everyone else. Everyone else is dependent. And Krishna's independent. You look at, we are dependent on the government, on our parents, on money, on nature. We're dependent. And then whatever we're dependent on, that's dependent on. The government's dependent on something. The parents are dependent on something. Nature is dependent on something. Nature itself is not independent. The elements of nature don't independently cook up the cosmic manifestation. They require the touch of consciousness. This body doesn't automatically work independently. It's dependent on consciousness. When consciousness leaves the body doesn't work anymore. Car is dependent on the driver. If the driver doesn't direct the car won't go. You say, oh yes, but we'll have self-driving cars. But they won't be self-driving. There'll be some higher direction. You'll program something, or if it's managed centrally, whoever is managing it will see to it. But the car won't drive itself. All these self-driving cars will not be self-driving. There'll be some higher control. But children will think, oh, the car is driving itself. The car is driving itself. But it doesn't drive itself. Someone's in charge. Just like these little toys, sometimes, you see it going this way and this way and this way and this way. But there's some kid who's standing there with a controller of some sort. He's making it go this way, that way. The car is not, or the little toy is not automatically working, although the child may think, and another child might think. But an intelligent child will wonder, how is it working this way? Why is it going this way, that way? And then he sees, he can understand. So everyone else is dependent. You track back, dependent. Therefore it can't be the absolute truth. I look at my body and I say it's dependent. All right, what's it dependent on? We'll say, well, it's dependent on, the total material energy. Let's go that far. Say it's dependent on, it needs earth, it needs water, so it's dependent on the total material arrangement. But that total material arrangement is also dependent. And whatever you come to as a scientist, you'll see dependent. If you could list its qualities, one would be dependent on something else. Contingent upon, dependent upon something else. So they're not the absolute truth. Why not? Because by definition, absolute truth means absolute. Absolute means independent. Just like in, I don't know who knows grammar around here, but there's something called an absolute clause. Absolute clause. Okay, I'll give you a quick, in grammar, I'll give you a quick example. Looking all around, the cat moved forward. So looking all around is dependent on the cat. The subject is the cat, and looking all around tells you what the cat is doing. It modifies the cat, or it speaks to the cat. So it's called a dependent clause. Looking all around, it needs cat. Who's looking on the cat? That's called a dependent clause. But if you have back arched, the cat moved forward. It's not dependent grammatically. Back arched is on its own. Of course, still it's related to the cat, but it's called an absolute construction. Or better, that's not quite really. Let's do that, because that's not absolute enough. It's really dependent. Its mate having died, its mate dead, the cat moved forward. Its mate dead, the cat moved forward. So its mate dead is totally independent. Totally independent. They're just not dependent. So it's called an absolute clause, absolute construction. Its mate dead, the cat moved forward. So not dependent. There are dependent clauses, then there's an absolute clause, absolute construction. So the personality, the absolute truth means not dependent. As soon as you see it's dependent, not absolute anymore. And we have this term we throw around, absolute truth. So the absolute truth is defined in the first verse of Bhagavatam, Swarat, independent. When you get to that truth which doesn't depend on any other truth, that's absolute. Our president, who was it? One American president had a little sign on his desk the buck stops here. There's an expression in English, to pass the buck. I give you something to do, you give it to Vishnu Chitta gives it to somebody else, he gives it to somebody else, he gives it to somebody else. It's called passing the buck. I don't really want to do it, so I pass it over here. Now I go back to Mahotsa and said, what happened? Well, I don't know, I gave it to Vishnu Chitta, I gave it to such and such. So passing the buck. I don't want to do it, so I pass it to somebody else. I don't want to accept the responsibility. I pass it to someone else. So the President of the United States had a little sign on his desk, the buck stops here. Because he's the supreme person in the government, he has no one else higher to pass it to. You call customer service, and if they can't fix it, they say, well, I'll have to speak to my supervisor. You speak to the supervisor says, well, I don't know, I'll have to send this up further. And you say, I want a refund. Then they say, well, I'll have to pass that to... I had that finally. Truman, thank you. So I had that. The tech guys were going around and around and around, each one pointing to the other, and then no one will, okay, I've had enough of this. Well, we can't issue a refund. We can only give you this much. We can only give you that much. We can't do this. I can't authorize that. Then finally I went to the head of the company. I got my refund. Because he's not looking over his shoulder, seeing, who he's accountable to. He's the head. You can't go past him. Independent, as far as the company goes. So the absolute truth means independent. Everything else is relative. Relative to what? To what it depends on. So everything else is relative truth. It's contingent truth. It depends on something else. And Krishna is the absolute truth. Satyam Param Dhimahi. Okay, some questions? Or comments? Yeah.
It's too loud. Maharaj, so now the living entities are parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yet the Supreme Personality of Godhead is above, beyond, and independent of the living entities as well. So this is also inconceivable that we are parts, but yet we are not parts in the sense like all our parts add up and make the whole.
No.
Rather, the whole is independent of the parts.
Yes.
And anyways.
Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishesha. If you subtracted all the parts, the whole would still be complete.
Yeah, so how do we understand that
You
the
don't
Supreme
understand
Lord? You can't understand.
Therefore it's said achintya guna. Inconceivable.
So our duty is to understand that we don't understand.
No, that much. For those who like mathematical examples, Sariputta Prabhu gave the example of the infinite hotel. Infinite hotel. There's a hotel with an infinite number of rooms. Right? How many rooms does it have? Infinite number. And it has, naturally, because numbers being numbers, it has even numbered rooms and odd numbered rooms. You can check into room 22 or you can check into room 23. Right? Now, if you subtracted from that infinite hotel the complete set of all the even-numbered rooms, how many rooms would be left? Infinite. You know, if you subtracted all the even-numbered rooms under 1,000, under 10,000, under 1,000,000, under 10 million, or all of them, there'd still be an infinite number left. Doesn't matter how many you subtract. Oh, Krishna.
A small boy, he was giving that dahi, what is that? Curd. And it falls and again it fills up. Purnamada.
What is that?
Prabhupada gave an example of a boy who went...
If you hold the microphone close to your mouth, it
Yes.
works better.
Yes, Maharaj.
No, not at your collarbone.
Yes.
Your mouth.
Like this.
Yes.
Srila Prabhupada gave example of a boy who his teacher asks to bring something, whatever it is you can bring for festival or something. And then that boy brings a small, you're very poor, so you get this small lota of curd, a yogurt. And then that yogurt, he'll say, what do you, yogurt is this? Only yogurt. And he just, he throws it down. And again it becomes full. And some stories there like that.
And we'd have to go to the source, I think. I don't quite get the story. It was a magical lota or something. It just keeps filling up.
There is in lecture Prabhupada said.
Yeah, but I don't think we quite got it.
You heard it?
Do you understand it?
Basically like this. What he's alluding to, I heard it. I don't know if it was Prabhupada lecture, another lecture, or I think Gorgovinda Maharaj, as far as I remember. But he's speaking about a story where the kid, where they're all having some festival in his school, and the teacher asks all the students to get something for the festival. So the boy, being very poor, goes to his mother and tells him, the teacher asked me to get something for school, and I don't know what to do. Then she said, the only person that can help you is Gopal. You go and pray to him. Dinabandhu Gopal. I think the name of the deity is Dinabandhu in their house or village or whatever. So when he goes and prays, Dinabandhu or Gopal gives him this.
Okay, now the story makes sense.
Yeah, gives him
Teacher
this.
throws the yogurt and it fills up again.
Yeah.
Because Dinabandhu is behind it. Otherwise it didn't make any sense.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Maharaj, in the Abrahamic religions also, there's little description of God creating, of how He creates. Yet there does not seem to be any, at least to my knowledge, any philosophical discussion of God becoming contaminated by material nature, material laws, or anything
I don't know,
like
I'm
that.
not a theologian, and I don't have that much, I'm not familiar with their Christian theological discussions, but my impression is that they do talk about these things. How can God be transcendent and still be involved in the work of creation? How can God be transcendent and still immanent, still present everywhere? So we don't have a monopoly on that. Let's not get too proud. These things are discussed, and since centuries and hundreds of centuries, or tens of centuries, hundreds. Mm-hmm.
In this Prabhupada makes a statement. He says that the impersonal conception of the supreme truth is due to lack of knowledge only. And this fact is clearly explained by Brahmaji, who is supposed to be the creator of the universal affairs, as the second last sentence of this Prabhupada Maharaj. I was just wondering, how does it really connect that, okay, you have an impersonal conception because you don't have knowledge, and coming from Brahmaji is a creator of universal affairs, how do these two
How do we what?
You know, how is it that because you don't have knowledge of universal affairs, you know, the knowledge is incomplete and
Just like,
therefore you have...
just like scientists, they think that everything comes from matter. How can they think that? Because they don't have complete knowledge of universal affairs. They think consciousness comes from matter. They think that the whole cosmic manifestation just comes from matter acting on its own. How can they think that? They don't have further knowledge. Consciousness comes from matter. And even, why don't they have knowledge? Because they don't want to have knowledge. They don't want to know that there's a personality of Godhead behind everything. They're averse to that. They're averse to that. And so they cook up these ideas. Life comes from matter, which they can't demonstrate, which is unscientific, ultimately, in that sense, which they can't even describe the process for. Okay, you can't do it, but tell us how it happens. They can't really do it. They can bluff in their textbooks, but they can't really, once you get down to the professional level, technical level, they can't explain it. Textbook level, sure, you can bluff a 10-year-old kid. But once it gets to how does it actually work, well, we believe it works like this, or it could work like that, or alternatively it could work the opposite way, or perhaps, or perhaps, or perhaps, but they don't really have it. So they bluff.
And
then, yeah.
And is it because of this that they have finally an impersonal conception that there was nothing, there's a big bang, and it's a very impersonal...
Yeah, matter works on its own. Or if they go beyond matter, then there's just this infinite spirit. But how does an infinite spirit manifest in the form of first of all, individual, first of all, in terms of intention? How do you get intention out of, pea soup, basically? They've got this, infinite pea soup, infinite Brahmajyoti, or infinite oneness. How from infinite oneness do you get intentionality? Do you get structure? Do you get form? Do you get colors? Do you get sound? How do you get variety out of oneness? They can't explain. So again, poor fund of knowledge. Well, my clock says 8:32. Should we stop here? Should we take one more question? That meant which? One more. Okay.
I believe I read maybe in Bhagavatam that Goddess Durga has the ability to create, maintain, and destroy.
Shristi, Stiti, Pralaya. Yes.
Is there any instance or example of this happening, and why does Goddess Durga have so much power to do? Why does she have that kind of position, such a powerful position? And
it's like, why does the police have so much power? Government gave it to them. She can create universes. She can has some power during maintenance also. She can destroy. But for the big time destruction, then Lord Shiva comes in.
thank you.
Yes.
Maharaj, I have a question about the word for word, this term aguna. You were
Aguna.
saying Krishna doesn't have any material qualities. And my question is, it's said that the living entities have a certain amount of qualities as Krishna. Of course, Krishna has all the spiritual qualities, but the living being, the qualities that we possess,
That's
are
also
they material?
spiritual
or
qualities.
They're spiritual.
Yeah. Or we can have a reflection. Suppose pleasing talker, that's a quality of Krishna. We can be pleasing talkers, by our material, but it's only a reflection. And we can only have about this much. So we also have qualities. Of course, now the qualities are manifest in terms of matter. Like a reflection, you look at your reflection on a pond. It has two arms, it has two legs, but it doesn't have what the body has in full. It's just a reflection. And where that tiny reflections also, and perverted reflections also, like the reflection in the pond is, this way and that way, refracted. So we have some qualities, but our qualities are reflected on the water. What's the water? Material energy. Actually, we have no material qualities. Living entity has no material qualities. You have no material qualities. You're not old or young or thin or fat or American or Persian or something else. But our qualities are reflected on the material nature, on the surface of the material nature. So it appears that we have, that we're businessmen, that we're politicians, that we're philosophers, that we're this, that we're that. Actually has nothing to do with us. It appears that the tree is moving in the water, that it's shaking. It has nothing to do with the tree. But it seems like, because the tree is on the water. Is that okay? Hare Krishna. Thank you all very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. And